Sabah al-Khair. Good morning, dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yousef Alreemawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English-language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Hello, Nasser. Good morning.
Morning, Yousef. How you doing?
So, this is a very big episode. We are in the middle of a very big period of time for the Palestinian cause in Australia. And we are going to talk about a major historic event that took place from the 6th to the 8th of November. The
Black-Palestinian Solidarity Conference.
Yes, the Black-Palestinian Solidarity Conference. And also what has been happening in Gaza. And we will also shed light on the very important Palestine activities that will take place next week. So, Nasser, without further ado, Gaza again and again.
Well, the reality, what we have a situation, politically in Israel where Benjamin Netanyahu has still failed to form a government.
Political paralysis.
And so you have a situation where, we need...
more blood.
Yeah, you've got to mow the lawn, as they've used a vernacular. The ongoing blockade, in its 13th year now, Gaza, 2 million people, 70% of them refugees that can see their homelands, 50% of them under 18 years of age, air, land, sea blockade, as David Cameron, former Prime Minister of Britain, called it, the largest open-air prison on earth. A population density, as we've taken it through before, of close to 7,000 people per square kilometre. And, we've done the math before, but just to remind our listeners that if Australia had the same population density, we would have close to 45 billion people, billion, in Australia rather than 26 million. And, when Israel decides that they're going to mow the lawn or they need to do something, in this instance, they decided to assassinate Baha Abu Atta, they can just do that. The population is trapped. They murdered him. And since then, up until the most recent figures, anything up to 50 people. And we should just remember, in context, on top of these 50 people this week, we've had 70 Palestinians murdered in the Great Return March, over 300 since Land Day last year. But we shouldn't take that out of the context of 2014, when over 2,000 Palestinians were killed, 500 children, 11,000 wounded, 200,000 people internally displaced,
and the destruction of nearly 1/3 of Gaza.
1/3 of Gaza. I mean, it's just
that's the one wave of hostilities in 2014, not to mention in 2012,
and we just continue.
And 2009.
And the dehumanization of the Palestinian has been driven to such an extent that they can mow the lawn, they can kill with impunity, to the point, miraculously, in fact, so leveraging the theme of the Black-Palestinian Solidarity Conference, only this week, police went into a Northern Territory home to arrest a young Aboriginal man, 19 years old, went into his house. Constable Rolfe shot him and dragged him out by his feet. And waved his gun at Mr. Walker's family and said if anybody else wants to get shot, they should approach. They put him in the Dibby van, took him back to the police station, didn't tell his family, though other people knew.
So they shot him and didn't take him to hospital. They took him to the station.
Correct. That's my understanding. And then he passed away, Mr. Walker passed away. There was protests in, obviously, the Northern Territory, but then all over Melbourne, Australia. Finally, Constable Rolfe was charged with murder. Now, Constable Rolfe was wearing a body camera, so there's video footage of the incident. reports are that Mr. Walker was shot in the back. So I don't know how you threaten somebody and get shot in the back. But anyway, he was charged with murder, but given bail. Now, I don't think any Aboriginals ever been given bail after being charged with murder. But anyway, the parallel in Palestine on the Gaza fence, an Israeli soldier, the first soldier. So we've had over 300 people killed on the fence since March last year. A soldier was convicted. This is fantastic. Convicted of murdering a 14-year-old boy who posed imminent danger to a sniper. So the sniper took him out. He was convicted, and the charge is acting without authorization in a manner endangering to life and well-being. And he was demoted 1 rank and given 1 month community service.
Well, it's very hard to come back to a level of injustice that deals with complete contrast of standards when it comes to human lives. Here you have Palestinian and black lives are shed for reasons or with no reason. And when I say reason, I mean disproportionate use of power and things that could have been dealt with maybe more cries, just asking the person to stop without even using your guns. But nevertheless, because we're talking about Palestinian and brown and black and indigenous lives, so these lives don't seem to matter.
Well,
and therefore, if you
cheap,
can, just do it. And we've seen also the exchange of WhatsApp messages, the video sent by one of the soldiers on WhatsApp to her
to her boyfriend,
showing off that she killed a Palestinian.
She shot him in the back. She didn't kill him. She shot him with a rubber bullet. Yeah.
And that Palestinian was just
walking away, arms in the air,
posing zero threat.
And it should be noted, he'd already been held captive by them for 3 hours, and they'd already beaten him. They'd already taken to him and beaten him up, and they were releasing him. And they were saying, walk away, show us your hands, keep walking, keep walking. He posed no threat. He was 30 plus meters away, and they shot him again. And she
videotaped it. There is footage, and she was showing off. Look what I did today. You must be proud.
Yeah. I mean, this is the level of. I mean, this is the thing about Zionism. We know Zionism is racism. We know it categorically. The concept of a superior religious people or ethnic people over another, and this fantasy that has been created, or perhaps not even fantasy, but this concept of superiority of the iron wall concept of early Zionism, that we need an iron wall to protect ourselves, has fed in itself into this hysterical concept of fear, security, everybody's a threat. And so the ability to shoot without thought or care. We saw a Palestinian murdered in Hebron. He was carrying a bucket of water. His house was on fire. They shot him on the front steps of his door a couple of days ago. A nuclear-armed state with nuclear submarines, tanks, F-16s, the most amazing military on Earth, as sophisticated as any army on Earth, can stop a 14-year-old boy without
killing him,
shooting him with a sniper's rifle. It's a 14-year-old boy. Now, as we know, Yousef, you and I, but perhaps our listeners don't know, 14-year-old boys in Gaza look like 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds in Australia. Now, the reason they look like 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds in Australia:
poor nutrition,
poor water, and the Israeli military occupation determines the calorific intake of every Gazan. The reality is 14-year-old boys are tiny. Now, if you can't find another way to stop this 14-year-old boy other than to shoot him and kill him, there's a problem.
Every time there is a wave of Palestinian blood being shed in Gaza or elsewhere, we seem to see the same rules of the game. Blackout in the media, and then if it's too big, then they start talking about it, but in a very tailored language that throws the blame on Palestinians indirectly. And then because when there are no Israeli casualties, then I'm not here to talk about the representation of the last wave of hostilities and aggression in Gaza, because I didn't even bother to study it or observe it or learn it or take notes. I was so frustrated. I knew what I'm going to see, to the extent that I didn't even read anything. But from the very little I know, I can tell you that it's the same rules of the game that keeps happening every time.
Blow up a building. I mean, there was one family of 9. 8 people were killed, the mum, dad, kids. The only survivor was a 6-month-old. I mean, how is this targeted? This concept of targeted assassination. John F. Kennedy was a targeted assassination. One person died. You don't bomb a whole building. Take out an entire family.
Imagine if a Qassam rocket landed on a building in Tel Aviv and killed 8-member family.
We'd know every single one of their names. We'd hear about their dreams, how they joined a scout group when they were little, and this young girl would have pictures of her with roses in her hair when she did Halloween. The concept of humanizing the tragedy, it would be a tragedy if she died.
Definitely.
But we are never given the same opportunity at humanization. And the challenge, and we should probably end it here, Yousef, because we need to give some time to the Solidarity Conference, is that if there's any report, it's instantaneous. There's no context given to the ongoing brutality. Occupation is violence. You cannot control air, land, sea, food.
Freedom of movement.
Freedom, everything for 13 years and that not be violent. If I trap you in your dunny for 13 years...
You can't do that by being nice to us.
If I lock you into your toilet for 13 years and leave you there and decide to slip amount of water under food and water under the door every day, every now and again I'll give you a bit of electricity, every now and again I give you a bit of drinking water, that's not... And sometime in that 13 years you throw a rock at me somehow through the window, well, and then the media says Yousef threw a rock...
to the peaceful neighborhood of Nasser.
And nobody actually says Nasser's a bad guy for not letting Yousef out of the toilet.
No. So to summarize this, we're talking about up to 50 Palestinians being killed, up to 200 people injured, tens of Palestinian homes destroyed, and 1 Israeli injury. And nevertheless...
Palestinians are the bad guys.
Yes, we will always be the bad guys. On a better note, Nasser, something really big and historic has happened in Melbourne last Friday.
Well,
not just Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
And we should say, repeat, this was the Black-Palestinian Solidarity Conference, contesting settler narratives. And this bit is very important, settler narratives, because the reality is the Zionist Israel lobby has hijacked the narrative and says to Indigenous Australians, we're like you. We're in our own home, struggling as Indigenous people, seeking the right to live, which is absolute bullshit. Well, it's absolute rubbish, because when Malcolm Turnbull welcomed Benjamin Netanyahu and said, we share a special relationship because we're the same countries. Because you're the same countries, because you're both built on settler colonialism that was predicated on the annihilation of an Indigenous people. Now, they almost succeeded in Australia, and not for want of trying, the Zionists failed in Palestine. And so this conference was spectacularly important in reclaiming this narrative, that the Indigenous struggles, the parallels between the Indigenous struggles for rights in Australia are completely and utterly in 100% Venn diagram, circle on top of circle, Palestinian struggle for rights as the indigenous people of the lands of historic Palestine.
And credit goes to the organizer of the conference, Dr. Gary Foley and Susanna Henty and Ali Kazak and APAN and every individual and organization that made it happen by either being there and speaking at the conference, by attending the sessions, by promoting it, by providing venues, by providing platform online. The list will go, and I don't want to mention some and forget others. This is
so we'll include everybody.
I will really definitely. I think we will definitely go back to this topic with more details and better acknowledgement of names. But this is a huge conference, and
I'll share some of my highlights, Yousef, and then you can talk about, in particular, your session. And I'd like to hear your thoughts about Rhonda Abdel Fattah and her presentation.
certainly.
So Professor Gary Foley opened the conference, and one of the things that we took away from his talk was the concept that reconciliation is not justice. Talking just about reconciliation isn't about justice. And he shared his concerns, or the realities, if you will, of the Indigenous incarceration rates in Australia and of the Indigenous Palestinian incarceration rates in Palestine. He spoke about life expectancy, mortality, income, and the equivalence of those two populations.
There's no reconciliation while the wound is bleeding.
No, really.
You gotta stop the bleeding, and then maybe we can talk.
Absolutely. We had Professor John Maynard, who's the current chair of Aboriginal History at Newcastle University. We had a fantastic Palestinian who came in via Skype.
Sorry to interrupt you, but on John Maynard, he mentioned something very important: the second wave of statelessness.
The second ethnic cleansing.
The second ethnic cleansing that hit the indigenous population in Australia, not the one in 1788. It's the one towards the end of the 19th century.
Correct, yeah.
Which often goes unnoticed.
Nobody knows about it, other than his works. Professor Nadia Abul Haj Skyped in from Columbia University, and she was opened the conference. She was part of the one in Columbia. We had
just to remind our listeners, this is the second Black-Palestinian Solidarity Conference. The first one took place last year in the University of Columbia, and with movements from the United States, particularly Black Lives Matters. And the second one took place here in Australia.
Correct. We had a fantastic keynote presentation from Professor Rabab Abdul Hadi from San Francisco, and she talked about her challenges navigating the Zionist...
Rabab is a Palestinian academic who for decades have been involved in, just like any other academic who teaches his or her subject, but when you mention the P word on campus, the Palestine word on campus in the United States, this will activate so many alarms. Mm-hmm. And she has been really bravely and courageously able to deal with it.
We had some fantastic Indigenous speakers too, and one of them who was just an amazingly powerful voice was a man called Murundu Yana from Carpentaria Land Council. And interestingly, and this is something I hadn't known, he's in the far north of Queensland, at the very tip of Australia. And
I was lucky to have Murundu in my session.
In your session, Yousef. And interestingly, and I'd never actually, understood this obviously, but by the time the colonialists got this far north, they'd sort of, I'm not going to say they had some humanity, maybe they got tired, but the reality is in his community the population is still 60% Indigenous, so they're the majority. And
maybe it's just too remote?
Well, in fact, Murundu paid tribute to the tribes of the south for tiring out the colonialists. So by the time they got there, they were, had run out of bullets, if you will.
Maybe our listeners will know who we are talking about if we tell them that this is the guy who kicked out Pauline Hanson from a restaurant in Queensland. There's a footage of that.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic footage. Also, something I didn't know, but he shared with us, was that the South African apartheid system was modelled on Queensland's Aboriginal Protection Act of 1897. So that was really good. And
so we inspired the apartheid.
Of course. Where else would they learn it best? And Richard Bell, who was a fantastic Indigenous artist, and he spoke about his tent embassy and some of his artwork.
And the use of humour.
Yeah, the use of humour.
He was in defying colonial power.
Such a funny guy. Marcello Seversky from the University of Wollongong did a presentation in 4 acts where he played 4 different roles within the Israeli society. One as the parent of a refusenik, one as one of the coordinators of the amount of food going into Gaza, the other one.
Also school teacher and an excursion and an academic.
Yeah, an academic. So.
Yeah. And this is often the elephant in the room in the Israeli society. Basically, what sustains occupation is the society, not just the soldier that carries weapon. It's the society behind him or her. And Marcello spoke in an artistic way, and he did a bit of a theatrical play about these four characters that took you really inside the Israeli society.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I want to give to mention Michaela Sahar, Dr. Michaela Sahar, who spoke about the Israeli endeavors to reposition their narrative within the narrative of indigenous people in their endeavors to seek indigeneity. I will never get this word.
Indigeneity. But yes. Also Dr. Sari Zananiri, who spoke about colonialist artworks and how the representation of the other, whether they were Palestinians within historic Palestine in the late 19th century or the indigenous within indigenous artworks in the within colonial artwork and how they portrayed the indigenous people. So there was
also
a
speaker from the United States, Nadia bin Yousef, who is a Tunisian, who spoke about a Tunisian lawyer in the United States. She spoke about the Bandung conference in 1955, and this is when Jamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt and Nehru of India and Joseph Tito of Yugoslavia and the big names that paved the road for revolutionaries like Castro in Cuba later, and the rest goes on, who met in Indonesia, and basically it was the first cry among the victims of colonial powers around the world to say, we will respond, we will not let the empire get away over and over again after 5 centuries of colonization, and how we can reconnect with the legacy of Bandung. But also she spoke about her late grandfather, who was a revolutionary leader in the Tunisian struggle.
Yeah, Professor Tony Birch, another indigenous fantastic academic. We have
and novelist.
Professor Ghassan Haj. I mean, the panels were just amazing.
Ghassan spoke about the necrophilia, the love of death in the exhibitions of colonials, which is very, I don't want to try and rephrase it because I think we need Ghassan to talk about this. But
the good thing is everything was videotaped and all the audio, and there's transcripts of all of the papers, so the organisers will make that live on the Black-Palestinian Solidarity Conference website. And as soon as that's up, we'll let our listeners know so they can go and watch it all in their own time.
I want to talk about my session.
Of course, yes.
It originally consisted of 3 speakers. We have Professor Irene Watson from a key figure in indigenous struggle, who had to cancel her trip due to illness in the last minute. I was looking forward to hearing her, but I was lucky to have seen Randa and Murando speak. Randa Abdel Fattah is a Sydney-based Palestinian novelist and author and academic. Randa is author of 11 can you believe
11 novels, yeah.
11 novels, and I guess her speech was very important because she reconnected with her father's legacy to the village near Yafa, the Burqa village, and she touched on the contrast and complexity of being the daughter of a Palestinian refugee, but also a beneficiary of a colonial system. So that itself was a bit of a dilemma for her. And if you allow me, Nasser, to mention a story that you told her, how your late father, Amma Abu Nasser, Allah yarhamu, on his grave there was some of the sand from Palestine, and how this symbolic, this very little and symbolic, it means a lot to us, because the sand of we are not buried in Palestine. We could not be buried in Palestine, but there is a little bit of Palestine on our grave. Look, I don't want to reduce the talk of somebody like Randa into 1 minute, but it was really amazing. It was also great to see Murando speak, somebody who wrestles crocodiles in his spare time, and really present a real life story from the indigenous struggle.
Well, one of his great stories was how they stopped the mining company from opening a mine up there. And he said, they were very strategic. They used women and old people to blockade the mine. The miners were there saying, "Look, Morandoa, if we open the mine, you'll earn $150,000 a year, and with that money you can eat crayfish." And he said, "When I want crayfish, I just go and go get one. When I want barramundi, I just go get one."
Yeah.
He said, "I don't need to go to a shop. I'm living our traditional life off our traditional lands and eat our traditional food when I want it.
Yeah.
I don't need to earn you $150,000 a year to pay $80 a kilo for a lobster. When I want a lobster, I just go in the water and get it." It was the most fantastic slapdown. It was, a joy to watch.
Yeah. So also we had Tasneem Sammak spoke about the silencing of the Palestinian and indigenous narrative in education, and we had really good other speakers and participants. So we had Samah Sabawi also.
Of course,
there was the matriarch panel. We have Elisar Shidyaq from Sydney.
One of my personal highlights was meeting Auntie Elma Thorpe, and she talked to her about the missionisation of Indigenous youth, where they were taken away from their parents and put into missions. And we saw a video, historic video from the 40s, 50s and 60s of these young Aboriginal kids saying "LAMB, lamb, LAMB." And if you'd seen the faces of these Aboriginal children, how distraught they were and sad they were, being taught by a saviour hero, white Christian woman, how to spell the word lamb. And in the context of being missionised as Elma Thorpe, the mother of Robbie and Lydia Thorpe, it could not but be moved. It was really a beautiful moment, and so devastatingly sad. And we should remember that the purpose of colonisation is to make extinct Indigenous people. That's what the colonialists tried to do here, and that's what Zionists tried to do in Palestine. They have not succeeded in either, and our struggles are parallel.
So when we have the material ready online, we'll let you know where you'll find it.
And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, next Friday, the Palestine Peace Prize is being awarded to Anthony Lowenstein. There's still some tickets left, not many to go. So go to JerusalemPeacePrize.com. We're awarding it to a great person in Anthony Lowenstein. The Jerusalem Peace Prize is being awarded by the Zionists to none other than the Honourable Scott Morrison.
PM. And can I also say thank you to our music band, the Tarab in Melbourne. I mean, I cannot brag a lot about it because I'm a member, but I want to say thank you to Mu'tasim on violin, Nasser on tabla, Abdelkader on oud, Greg on saxophone, and Omar on guitar. We had our very first public performance towards the end of the conference, and we loved it. And I think the people who watched us loved it as well.
You were in raptures. And we should make clear it was a different Nasser. It wasn't me. It was somebody with some talent.
Yeah. We only have one Nasser who's doing Palestine Remembered and 10 other Palestinian projects. Maybe a bit of music we'll also do.
Okay.
And we didn't talk about yesterday's Palestine National Day, the flag raising in Federation Square, because Gaza was more important and the conference as well. But we will talk about it in our next episode. Until then, this is Nasser, Robert and Yousef wishing you the best of time, and salam.